So we just recently had a waiver that will allow us to work on a 50-mile stretch of our transmission line in the Denver, Colorado area. But we expect to expand that program to all 10 states.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello everyone, this is Randy Goers and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 160. How close are we to routine beyond visual line of sight flights? For one company, it begins this year. Mark Nisbet is the North Dakota Principal Manager for Xcel Energy, a utility power company based in Minneapolis. The company provides power to millions of homes and businesses across 8 Western and Midwestern states. In April of this year, Xcel Energy was granted authorization to fly drones beyond visual line of sight. It will be the first utility in the nation to routinely fly beyond the operator's line of sight when it begins surveying transmission lines near Denver this year. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Mark talks about Xcel, its history of using drones, and the plans for flying beyond visual line of sight. Joining Mark is Nick Flom, the Executive Director of the Northern Plains UAS Test Site, and Wes Shover, the UAS Sector Development Manager for the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation. Together, they talk about the partnerships in North Dakota that have made this possible and how it serves as a benchmark for the industry moving forward. But before we hear from Mark, Nick, and Wes, I want to thank those of you who have been supporting my funding campaign on Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to patreon.com/drone radio show to join the team. Now let's learn how Xcel Energy's plans to fly beyond visual line of sight will support industry-wide applications with Mark Nisbet, Nick Flom, and Wes Shover. Let's pick up the interview where I asked the three to introduce themselves.
This is Mark Nisbet from Xcel Energy, North Dakota Principal Manager, and I'm really pleased to be joining you today with a couple of the people that are helping move the UAS opportunities forward in North Dakota.
Nick Flom. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Plains UAS Test Site.
This is Wes Shover, the UAS Business Developer for the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation.
Mark, can we start by having you tell us about Xcel Energy?
Xcel Energy is a large natural gas and electric utility in 8 Midwestern states, over 3.5 million electric customers, another 1.5 million gas customers, and we're proud of being one of the leaders in the unmanned aerial system field as far as utilities go. We appreciate our partners like the Grand Forks Economic Development Authority. Nick Flom, the Northern Plains UAS Test Site, is doing wonderful work. I think the reason we wanted to get together to celebrate a milestone at Xcel Energy, we just received FAA approval to fly beyond visual line of sight on a routine stretch of our transmission line. We have 20,000 miles of transmission line in general, in that we believe if we can do those inspections with the help of UAS, we can improve the safety and efficiency of inspecting the utility and infrastructure in many different ways. And so I think it'll also help us improve system reliability, reduce customer costs, and enhance employee and public safety. So we've got a lot going on here, and the two gentlemen on the phone with me today have really played a big role in attracting Xcel Energy to North Dakota to work on these research projects.
Mark, how long has Xcel Energy been involved in the drone sector?
We've been involved for about 4 years. We had a test project down in one of our big coal plants close to the Twin Cities, and a project that used to take us 2 weeks to inspect boilers, we were able to accomplish in an afternoon without the safety concerns of setting up scaffolding to go 6 stories high. So based on the savings on that, some of our leaders with some real foresight came together to say, boy, this could make a real difference in our company. So we did create a UAS task force in 2014. I was lucky enough to join that task force. I joined it or elbowed my way in because of the great work North Dakota had been doing around this test site. First off, when Governor John Hoeven was in office, his work to attract the test site here, and with the great work that test site is doing now that it's up and operating. So that was the beginning, and we found a couple of projects or research efforts to engage in here in North Dakota to the point where North Dakota now is the preferred go-to supplier of UAS partners. Maybe don't call them suppliers, but partners in the UAS collaboration. So our company is starting to turn to North Dakota for the expertise that's hitting on all cylinders here in the state, and we're pleased to have access to it. Xcel Energy, we do have 100,000 customers in North Dakota. I take great pride with the fact that North Dakota is going to help us move into the UAS environment.
Did the company enthusiastically jump into the industry, or did it take a little time for management to embrace the technology?
I think we've been moving forward in the typical crawl, walk, run method. The first effort was such a big success that the enthusiasts started positioning themselves to let senior management know of it. But like all efforts to get the dollar shaken loose to accomplish that, we have a real program leader in Eileen Lockhart who joined in very early, has the enthusiasm, has truly rallied our employees to believe that it can be done. And then I want to say we had a great opportunity in North Dakota working with the test site and UND. VP of Research Grant Majimsi made a big difference there. Nick made a difference. The SkyScopes folks, the Elbit folks. We came together on a research project that we were able to present right in front of U.S. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao last summer. In the fact that that project worked very well. We had real-time images of the test taking place over the city of Mayville, and the point of that was to prove that we could utilize this technology to more quickly recover from natural disasters. In that case, we simulated tornado damage in the community of Mayville, broadcast live pictures back to the site, and made critical decisions based on what our control center was seeing in real time. So that was sort of a turning point for us. So you're always cautious with the dollars you spend, but so far we've sort of been moving steadily forward in this recent Beyond Visual line of sight. I think is just confirmation that we're on a very positive track.
Okay, so let's jump into the Beyond Visual line of sight authorization. Tell us about the operation.
The scope of that authorization is the result of several years of work in planning with the FAA. They're a spectacular safety organization, so they're making sure that as the industry moves forward, it's done in a replicable manner. And I think that's where Xcel Energy is excelling in partner with the FAA. We're a large company with safety as our number one priority as well. So over the last 2 years, we've been working on some of these inspections, but always involving a chase plane or visual inspection. So we just recently had a waiver that will allow us to work on a 50-mile stretch of our transmission line in the Denver, Colorado area. But we expect to expand that program to all 10 states that we have transmission line in to be able to more quickly inspect those lines. But main credit for that goes to the team that's been put together and putting a lot of time and effort on it. And I can't say enough good things about the Northern Plains test site and the role they provided in helping us interface with the FAA.
Will the operators be on the ground in close proximity to the drones, or are they remotely located somewhere else?
No, we'll have them in close proximity to the drone, but they will be watching by the screen, and it will go beyond what they would be able to see by eyesight. So utilizing the technology inherent in these next generation flight vehicles, in this case, a helicopter-style craft.
Nick, if you could, Mark mentioned the Northern Plains UAS test site a number of times. So can you talk about how it was involved?
Really, our organization was established for the FAA to help them integrate UAS operations into the national airspace system. And by doing so, really looking for opportunities with private industry who are looking to use this technology to further their businesses. We had the opportunity, again, with very forward thinking of Xcel Energy to support some of their overall efforts. Mark discussed the fact that we did some post-storm damage assessment work that was able to show from a concept of operations that could be repeatable. Another thing that we helped support over the last probably 4 months of the calendar year of 2017 was doing about 1,000 miles of inspections using a drone in Minnesota, Colorado, and Texas. And what that was able to allow us to do, working with Xcel, some of their partners, and ourselves as oversight of those operations, was to really kind of define, what does the concept of operations look like for flying on the transmission line, especially long routes. Everything from logistically the flight planning portion of it, launch and recovery of the vehicles. Where do you position your people to really make your days as efficient as possible? And we were able to demonstrate that capability by flying the lines on behalf of Xcel and turn that into a safety case to the FAA to show we have the procedures in place. We have an aircraft that is capable of doing these operations. We have a flight crew that trained and has demonstrated that they can do these kind of operations. And we work very closely with multiple offices within the FAA in order to come to an approval to allow this first phase of operations that Mark mentioned, will allow us to, on a routine basis, to fly 50 miles in the Denver area. It's a collaboration between Xcel and the FAA. They have a partnership for safety program, which is really enabling the FAA to work closely with an industry partner, with Xcel, to help with, again, the UAS integration efforts within the national airspace on the types of complex operations like beyond visual line of sight.
In your opinion, what were the key elements in getting us to where we are today?
There's a lot of players that are involved in order to execute this. Xcel has a very robust system on their GIS analysis. They understand where their lines are and the environment that they're in. Everything from urban environments to the rural environments, the altitude of the lines, all those things are very important from a flight planning standpoint. So that's very critical for us. Another element is to have a flight crew that is competent to do these operations, handing off of the aircraft between pilots, being able to incorporate all that flight planning into their system. All that takes time and effort. And then to have an aircraft that has the capability not only to fly the mission, but also the most important portion of this to Xcel Energy is not about the executing the flight. It's about the data that can be collected so that they can make real-time decisions about the health of their power line. And then probably one of our big challenges, how do we make sure when an airplane is flying beyond visual line of sight of the remote pilot that he did not interfere with any other manned traffic that might be flying in the area? How is he able to detect and avoid that traffic? And we're able to put in partners to meet all of those different criteria in order to get the waiver approved.
Which drone is Xcel using for this?
The aircraft is made by a company called Altus Intelligence, and it's a ORC-2.
And I assume they're a member of the partnership.
Yeah, it is. And, really having what I've called a cooperative OEM, somebody who, when we have questions about their product, that we can get answers to show reliability information. They're also a strong part of the team.
Now, to be clear, this is not a demonstration of the technology, but rather it's an actual approved operation.
That is absolutely correct. I mean, this is something that when I look at what we were able to provide over the last fall, that was really the R&D element of it, in every aspect of it. The flight execution portion of it, the data collection standpoint of it, the flight crew, aircraft, all that was really to prepare us for the commercial operations side of it, that this can be operated under Part 107 of the regulations by waiving the visual line of sight requirement.
How significant is this operation?
What I do at the test site is really, again, from that NAS integration standpoint, and to see the work turn into a commercial approval, that's a big win for us. And that's a big win for the FAA, and that's a big win for the UAS industry. This is something that not only benefits Xcel Energy, but it absolutely impacts the entire UAS industry. Some of these things just takes a leader to actually put the work in, to put the safety case in, work closely with the FAA. So from my standpoint, this is just a big win for, more than just Xcel Energy, but really for that entire UAS industry.
This is Wes Schover. So I can't speak enough about how Xcel is proving itself as an early adopter, really technically outside the UAS industry, and they're paving the way. Very few organizations have received beyond visual line of sight authorization for actually executing work on a routine basis. The early adopters outside the industry, the users, the actual users of this technology, they're the ones that are going to make the biggest difference. Because when you can get the companies like Xcel Energy to say, look, we really need to use this technology to increase efficiency and increase safety, that is a validation that the technology is worth it. It's paving the way for the rest of the folks. And in North Dakota, there's a lot of collaborations with the Northern Plains UAS Test Site and University of North Dakota, the Grand Sky Business Park. We're all trying to pull in the same direction. And Xcel is one of those leaders to help us move that direction with the test site. This is just an opportunity for us to highlight the work that's being done behind the scenes that not everybody really knows about.
I was going to say, this is Mark Nisbet from Xcel Energy, and our partners made a huge difference. Wes has helped introduce us to those suppliers that can make a difference. But for us now, it's sort of showing that our faith in those partners, that we could turn this from a research into a real-world cost savings. The helicopter industry that we typically use for inspecting these power lines, flying low and slow, there have been fatalities from that in the past. We think that the implementation of the payloads, the artificial intelligence that will let us predict when failures are coming, rather than just seeing current problems out there, can make a difference. The resolutions can be so great that we can start seeing cracks on insulators, or somebody building something below one of our transmission lines could be potentially fatal to somebody working. So we believe that instant acknowledgement of what's going on out in the field is going to make a huge difference. Safety, cost-wise, it's a dramatic change in cost. Once that we're going to move to true beyond visual line of sight, we might see our costs being reduced by a factor of 5 on some of those inspections. So we're looking forward to that day when we can utilize this across all 20,000 miles of high voltage transmission line, but then moving into more than 300,000 total line miles if you count our distribution system. So it does appear that the opportunities are unlimited within our business.
What Mark touched upon is getting to the predictive. Right now, the industry, a lot of the verticals are in a reactive. In the agriculture industry, it's mostly reactive using analog technology, and the utility companies, the same thing. We're waiting for an event to occur to react, or using maintenance standards to execute the work. But now, in this vertical and other verticals, as the technology matures and we learn how to use the sensors to do predictive analytics and use deep learning to really predict things, then you start making an impact on logistics and operation savings instead of, waiting for something and trying to catch it at the last moment. So that's the turning point from going from, the analog world to the digital. I think in time, you're going to see a lot of the different verticals using this technology, that it's going to be a lot more profitable in different ways than we originally expected.
Has there been any discussion of how going from reactive to predictive will affect workflows, decision-making, organizational structures, and even the type of people that are hired to manage these new opportunities?
This is Mark Nisbet, and again, we talk about that every day at our company. We pride ourselves on our efforts to hold costs down. We make our companies competitive by doing that. One of the other companies that's moved into the North Dakota arena is eSmart, a company with technology driven in Norway, where they moved into this line of work earlier than we have with the utilization of the drone. So we're learning something every day. Microsoft has a large facility located in the Fargo area, well over 1,000 employees there. They've expressed interest in utilizing their cloud. So truly, you set that question up and you answered most of it yourself. That's absolutely the direction we believe we're heading.
Once verticals or once industries start learning those predictive analytics, you're going to get the tech companies that have been built on data to start being more interested, because that's what it's all about. Once you can start driving operations and logistics challenges through data and predictive analytics, that's when they're going to start being, they're already interested because they see the opportunity, but it's just cracking that code and finding the ways each of the industries.
As a recognized leader in this effort, what sort of feedback or questions do you get from others?
There's a couple of silver bullets, that everyone wants to try to figure out. So there's a lot of curiosity, about what made this approval possible. It's really about the different technologies that are coming together in order to enable this stuff. And all of those are key components. So there's always a curiosity of how can somebody else's technology play into this into the future. To me, what part of the curiosity is now that they've actually been able to see the success of a utility industry getting this type of approval, and they immediately go, wow, they cracked the code on efficiency and safety and, potentially reliability, dependability, you name it. How can we be a part of that? That's going to be really where my curiosity is. What kind of outreach does Xcel have from, other people that are part of the Edison Electric Institute that wants to know, hey, how can we be a part of this? We're getting an idea from the industry side of the supporters, the ones who can make this happen, that are wanting to know, is our solution part of the solution? But we don't necessarily fully understand yet what the other utilities or the other industry is looking at this success.
Wes, any comments from your standpoint?
I'm a business developer. At the heart of my role is to attract companies, to highlight the successes, but also the infrastructure and the opportunities in North Dakota, right? So this is just one of the spotlights on the fact that North Dakota can get it done. I want to reiterate the fact that we're all pulling in the right direction. When I moved to North Dakota, really quickly I noticed that everyone is pulling in the same direction. We're all open to collaboration. Instead of fighting amongst ourselves, we're finding ways to collaborate. Just to touch upon some of the key points, we have a large percentage of coverage for ADSB in North Dakota, probably the most in the U.S., because we said, hey, we think that in the future, this is going to be important. So we invested in increasing the coverage to the surface. So a large percentage of that. We've got the workforce development. University of North Dakota leveraged their 50 years of aviation. They have a 4-year degree and going to be introducing a master's degree and also a 2-year degree program on UAS. So when they graduate, they're going to have a private pilot, a commercial rating, and then a UAS certificate. So, there's a lot of things happening that the state of North Dakota is really saying, hey, we're betting on winning, and we're betting that if we spend the money now and invest in future, it's going to pay off dividends. And they really, the state of North Dakota is really trying to charge and find new ways to continue to be the leader, but also partnering with folks outside the state to say, help us, help us bring this forward.
From the Xcel Energy point, I would say we just had our CEO's quarterly presentation this morning, and to see him really excited about this next step that we've taken in the UAS industry was fun. We've talked a lot about UND, the aerospace program up there, but the other university in the state, North Dakota State University, I live in Fargo, and we're sponsoring a senior design expo among the engineers here that we're going to see what they've accomplished. So it truly is a statewide effort, but with the center of that hub being in Grand Forks, In Fargo here, I talked about the drone focus. Greg Devine puts on a spectacular program. He's supported by his friends up in Grand Forks, those COAs between here and Fargo to Grand Forks. I think Harris Corporation should get a mention for some of the work they're doing. But we're continuing to see from our company's perspective where North Dakota will play an ongoing role in our efforts. In fact, our technology VP has joined the autonomous board in the state of North Dakota. So we continue to have a strong interest in what North Dakota can do to help us reach the potential of this new technology.
Is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
The work that we're doing with Xcel right now, we did not cross the finish line. This is not the end goal, getting this first approval. This is the start, so we can continue to expand our operations so that we're not talking about just the one segment that had the initial approval. We're talking about what Mark said of, being able to cover all the transmission lines. Heck, maybe all the transmission distribution lines. This is the start of a very big initiative, and, there's going to be a lot more coming down the line.
Yes, this is Mark. I think Nick hit the nail on the head there. 20,000 miles of transmission line, often out in less populated areas. If we're truly going to get the full benefit, I believe we'll have to figure out what the safety case needs to be made for flying over populations, larger populations. How safe are those aircrafts? Are we recognizing that there might be privacy issues? How do we address those things? But I think it's going to be a continuum of learning. And once we master one phase of it, it'll be on to the next.
And for my final question, what message would you like to leave people about North Dakota and the drone industry?
This is Wes. For those people that don't know about North Dakota, you really have to come to the state so we can show you. Reach out to the test site, reach out to me with NDSU and the two-year colleges like Northland Technical Community College and Lake Region State College and UND. There's just so much happening that I'd say I haven't done a very good job promoting it. Until you come and see, you cannot fathom the amount of support and collaboration that's happening in the state with support of our elected leaders, our CODEL, and, the Department of Commerce. It's really, you have to come to North Dakota to see it, so reach out to us.
That's it for episode 160 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Mark Nisbet, Nick Flom, and Wes Shover and learning about Xcel Energy's plans to fly beyond visual line of sight. I want to thank these gentlemen for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Xcel Energy or want to connect with Mark, check out the webpage at xcelenergy.com, and Xcel is Xcel Energy.com. You can connect with Nick at the Northern Plains UAS test site at npuasts.com. And Wes can be reached via grandforks.org. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.